So, hello. I'm just getting over a cold. My voice is going to be a little rough. Please be patient with me. So, this is the third episode where I'm going to be talking about all these newer editions of Dungeons and Dragons. My main reason for doing these is so that guys who are running campaigns back with first or second edition rules can take all the modules that came out for these newer editions and then bring them back into first and second edition and to be able to play with them. So, we'll just keep going on here. Fourth edition is the edition that people seem to uniformly dislike, which is too bad because when you look through the books, you can really see that these guys put out a lot of effort making it. But I can kind of understand, A, I understand what they were trying to do, and B, I understand why people don't like it. So I'm going to try to not just be down on it and show a lot of hatred for it, but I am going to try to show what they were trying to do, which I don't completely disagree with. And we'll go through a character sheet, and I'll compare a couple of spells, and I'll compare a couple of monsters for you, and then that'll be the end of it. So anyway, here we go. Today we're talking about 4th edition. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so why in the world would people hate 4th edition? And I'll just give you my own personal opinions, and you can figure out what you want to think about it for yourself. But so say in front of you you've got a big plate of spaghetti, and you just want to figure out one strand of it. You want to see where that strand is, where it starts, where it ends. So you grab the strand, and then you start following the strand around, and you find out that that strand goes deep into the spaghetti and then pops out someplace else, swirls around a few times, and then comes out the completely other end of it all, right? That's what it felt like when I was reading these books, right? Back in 3rd edition and edition 3.5, right? The monsters all had these special powers, like tremor sense, and whatever, and you had to, when you were looking at a monster description, you had to take that one word, and then to correctly understand the monster description, you had to go look that word up in another part of another book, right? So you knew right off the get-go that when you were reading a monster description, you weren't going to understand it just by reading it. You actually had to go and do a lot of other research in a lot of other books before you would understand that description, right? In 3rd edition and edition 3.5, it was just the monsters that gave you a hard time. In 4th edition, it's the entire game. Those stupid little words are put everywhere, all over the place, in every paragraph of every page of each and every book, right? So if I want to understand anything about this book, I've got to find those little words and then figure out where they're defined, and then I have to go study those words wherever it is they are. So in other words, in order to understand any little part of this book, I have to understand all of the book, which is very frustrating. For reference books, you don't want to do that to people. You want to make it so they can walk in, study a little thing, and then walk out, right? But these books were written in a way where you can't do that. You have to read a little area, and then you got to go research 5 or 10 other areas in order to understand it. In my opinion, that might be one of the biggest reasons why people hate 4th edition. If you can handle that, right, if you got a really good memory, then maybe it's the edition for you. I gave an analogy one time in one of my past episodes about a waiter, right, and how could it be applied to D&D. So you go into a restaurant with your friend and you just want to sit down and eat some food and talk to him, and then you get a waiter who comes to your table, he gives you water, he takes your order, and then a few minutes later he brings you your food, and then from time to time he gives you water, and then aside from those times you never see him, When it's time to get your check, you say, "Check please," and then he shows up, and then you never see him again, right? That's the best waiter in the world. Those are the guys who realize that the entire experience is not about them. It's about you, right? And it's their responsibility to kind of get out of your way, right? Then consider another sort of waiter who shows up at your table and wants to talk to you and wants to have a nice little conversation with you and tell you about his problems, and then he comes and he gets you your order, but it's late or it's wrong or it takes too much time. And then when he shows up to give you the check, he's waiting around trying to see what he can do to get a tip out of you. I mean, the best waiters are the ones who think it's about you, and the worst waiters are the ones who think it's about them. And when you're trying to study these books, if you have to constantly think about the gaming system that you're using and whether or not you're using it right, then that's a gaming system that's not doing its job. The best gaming systems in the world are the ones that, it doesn't take a lot of time to learn them, it's easy to achieve a state of fluency with them, and then B, the times that you do have questions, it's very easy to go find that information and get on with the game, right? The game is supposed to be about you and your friends and the story. The game is not supposed to be about the gaming system. The gaming system is supposed to be something that gets out of the way. And I don't think 4th edition does that. They don't make it easy enough for you to go and find and get new information. They made it actually pretty dang hard. Another complaint I've heard about, a lot of people said that it felt to them like they were playing a video game. And I guess I'll explain what that means a little bit. Back in the late 80s, well, before the 80s, it was just you would move your character on a screen and shoot, 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 or punch, 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 right? But then back in the late 80s and on, what happened in video games was that in fighting video games like these, you would come up with some special combination of keystrokes or movement of the joystick, and then some super move would happen, right? And the way that casting magic, like Ken's fireball, right, or whatever, it was all done just through this series of keystrokes. And then later on in games like Soul Calibur, right, everything became a super move, right? So you could go down this big, huge list of all these super moves that were in the video game, and then you could study how to do those particular super moves, right? Everything was a super move, which is, a lot of people didn't like it when D&D felt like that. They wanted it to feel more like Lord of the Rings and like The Hobbit, and not like Soul Calibur, right? As far as the actual gaming systems go, they wanted, the impression I had anyway, was they wanted to kind of achieve that same kind of purity and down to the ground, nuts and bolts, bread and butter kind of feeling that The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings had to it, where not everything was defined and not everything was so polished, right? Very organic. And then 4th edition, everything was just super polished, super refined, everything defined. I think people just didn't like that feeling. So that was another reason. Anyway, the final effect of it was that if you search on Facebook, there is no 4th edition fan group that I could find. Maybe there's one there and I just didn't see it, but everybody stayed allegiant to 3rd edition, 2nd edition, 1st edition, old D&D, and then now you got the 5th edition user groups. Nobody's staying true to 4th edition. Everybody, there is no fan base for it that I see. Granted, I'm sorry I don't see everything, and if you're one of those guys, please tell us about it in the comments for this video, but there's no fan group for 4th edition Dungeons & Dragons on Facebook. I think that says something really important. I hate to be so down on 4th edition, but there's a reason why so many people just kind of don't like it, you know? Anyway, let's continue. Okay, this is my 3rd edition that I've done character sheets for, and this one was actually the hardest. Of 3, 3.5, and 4, 4 was definitely the hardest. Before I start talking about this, I think before I erase any of these blanks, I'm just going to let you look at all the different notes that I wrote. I'm not an expert in 4th edition. I think I figured out how to do a character sheet, and that's what I can offer you guys today. So here we go. As always, I've color-coded it into three different methods, right? I got these red yellows. Those are the ones that you either have to look up in a book or that you have to choose on your own, right? And then you've got these yellow-red areas, and that is just where you take one piece of information that you've already written down someplace else, and you copy it here. And then you've got these green-blue areas, which you don't need to mess with for right now, right? That's something that'll show up later on in the game. The thing is, 4th edition's hard and weird and complex, so there are these other areas that are kind of different colors, right? So here, you're probably going to be ignoring all this, but there is actually a chance that if you chose the right feat, that it might affect your saving throws. So I didn't study everything. I just studied how to do a fighter. So you're going to have to figure it out on your own, whether or not you need to put any data here. And same goes for here. I'll explain that when the time comes. First, we'll start with the easy stuff, the stuff that you just get to choose, so like your player name and your character name. And it's really interesting. In this particular one, you actually get to choose your age and your gender, your height, and your weight. If you go to pages 34 to 49, it'll tell you what ranges your given race will allow you. But yeah, you actually get to choose it. You don't have to roll anything anywhere. Of course, you start out with 0 XP. The group that you're a member of, you're either your DM gets to choose that, or you get to choose that along with your other players if you're going to give yourself a name. Everybody starts out at level 1, right? For your class, you get to choose that. As a rule, as always, you should be choosing your class and your race at more or less the same time. So the race data, 34 to 49, and then the class data, pages 50 to 149. Anyway, size, everyone's going to be medium, unless you're a halfling, and then you're going to be small. Let's see. They've got this new they divide your life, right? Your entire character's life. They're going to divide it up into thirds. Levels 1 to 10 is the heroic time period, right? And then from levels 11 to 20, that's your paragon path, the time period of your life, right? And then once you get to level 21, from 21 to 30, it's your epic destiny part of your life, right? You start out as a fighter, but then here you can choose to be a different kind of fighter, right? Think of it as a refining of your character class, a more complicated version of your character class, but you don't have to choose that on day one. You choose that when you get to those levels. So that's all I'm going to say. They changed the alignment system this time. Instead of, lawful good, neutral good, chaotic good, it's just lawful good and good, and then unaligned, and then evil and chaotic evil. You've just got those 5, right? I kind of liked the first edition and second edition alignment system. I'm used to it. I like it. And then if you want to, you can also have a deity. My guy chose not to. Let's start here with your ability scores next, right? So on pages 17 and 18, they've got 3 different methods that you can use to roll up your numbers, right? And then once you've rolled those numbers up or determined those numbers, you get to add your racial adjustments to them here on pages 34 to 49. Anyway, it's the same chart as was in 3rd edition and edition 3.5, where you get your ability modifiers. Before I continue on, I just wanted to talk about one of the 3 rolling methods. This is the first time D&D ever gave you like a set of numbers to just plug into your character, right? As a rule, they've always had you roll for it. I wanted to show you where those numbers came from, right? So this is a program, all it does is just roll up characters and then find out the averages of what's been rolled. So I'll have it do 10,000 here, right? So these are the individual characters that get rolled. And then after I roll them, it uses the 46, get rid of the lowest 6-sider method. And then it sorts it, right? The highest number goes on top, the lowest is at the bottom. As it rolls these things up, it puts the total of all of the numbers that show up here, right? And then it comes up with the average over here. And then it rounds it over here, right? So 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9. So if I let this go on for a really long time, what you're going to eventually see is this is always like a 10.4 and this is always like an 8.5. And when you round it up, it becomes 10, and this will become sometimes 9 and sometimes 8. So this is how they got those numbers. It is the average, right? But then once they figured out what the average was, they actually gave you +1 here and then +1 or 2 here. So what they've given you is actually pretty fair, So anyway, that's where those numbers came from. It wasn't just some random decision. There's math behind it. 4th edition, it's trying to still be a D20 system, but they did make a lot of changes to it. So anyway, here's your ability mods. But then in D20, in 4th edition, you actually get to add half your level to this too. I don't remember if you got to add it to 3rd edition and edition 3.5. But because I'm just 1st level, it's always half your level rounded down, so I don't get to add anything to my ability modifiers, right? So anyway, once you get this data down, then you can come up here and you can copy your dex number to your initiative, half your level, right? This you get to ignore. So that means that my initiative, the thing that I get to add to my initiative roll when I roll it, which is all on D20s, right? 3rd edition and edition 3.5. It's you roll a 20-sider to see who goes first in a fight, and you get to add your initiative modifier, right? And then here, right, your saving throws. They did something different this time. They're trying to make the armor classes and the saving throws a similar sort of thing. In 1st and 2nd edition, armor class and the saving throws were 2 completely different things, but they're trying to make them similar now, so that you would think about a reflex saving throw the same way you think about armor class. I don't know that I agree with this, but I understand what they're trying to do, and they think they're trying to make it more streamlined and more easier, but I don't know that it's actually making it any easier. Anyway, everybody starts out with a 10 plus half your level rounded down, and then you copy your ability modifiers. It's really interesting. Fortitude, your fortitude saving throw, it's either strength or constitution, whichever's higher. And your reflex is either dexterity or intelligence, and your willpower saving throw is either wisdom or charisma. So whichever is higher of these two numbers is the numbers you're going to put here, which is very different. And then your class, they'll give you some benefits too. And this thing, right, sometimes if you choose the right feat, maybe they'll give you some bonuses. Anyway, it didn't apply to me as a fighter, but it might apply to you. And then you just add all of this up, and then these are your saves, right? If somebody is going to do a reflex attack on you or a fortitude attack on you. So anyway, armor class is done similar, and once again, I'm going to talk about the equipment that I bought before I talk about armor class. So I'm just going to ignore this. I'll ignore the speed too. Passive insight and passive perception, right? I talked about this once in one of my other episodes where we talked about like an intuition roll to see if they can figure something out. When the players can't come up with a good idea, does the DM give them a good idea? That's what this is, right? You can either try to guess what's going on inside a guy's mind or trying to guess what's going on within a given situation. And if you can roll this number or better, then that means that you come up with a good idea. It's to give people a chance to get by a situation that otherwise they would fail. Anyway, both of these come from down here, the skills. And when you start, in my instance, I got to choose these 3 skills, right? And as soon as you choose a skill, then you get 5 points in this trained area, right? And then these are all my natural ability modifiers, right? And then if my armor is really cumbersome, then I might have some negatives here. And then because of my race, I got some bonuses here too, and then you just add it up and you put it here. So from now on, if I want to do something athletic, jump off the top of a house and land inside of a garbage can. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something arbitrary, right? So if he gives that a difficulty class of 20, right, I have to roll a 20 or better in order to succeed. The thing is, I get to add this 9 to whatever it is I roll. So even if I roll as low as an 11, I add the 9 to it, and I can still succeed. So this is similar to stuff that happened in 3rd edition and edition 3.5. Anyway, these skills are directly related to these two here, which isn't so hard to understand. Language is known. That's it. You just go to those pages 34 to 49 in your race description. Race features. There's probably more stuff. I might have missed it. This is just workspaces for keeping track of current tallies of things, right? You'll figure this stuff out as you go. The hit points that I get, right? They give you a total of 15 plus your constitution modifier, right? So I got a total of 16. I'll start with 16. And then they've got this one condition that shows up later, bloodied. So if I lose half my hit points, like right here it says I get +1 to hit when bloodied. So I get better in a fight when I'm losing it, right? So sometimes this matters. Surge value, they've got this thing now, healing surges, and you can spend one and get some of your hit points back. You can only do it, I think, once per encounter, and then you can get so many healing surges a day. I don't know that I like this. I think I like the old system where clerics just ran around helping people out. Let's keep going here. These are the different benefits I get because of my class. They're just these 3 always-on skills, right? More will show up once you get onto a Paragon Path and to an Epic Destiny. So it means this is a small place. You should actually be having this on another sheet of paper. This is an attack workspace. They're trying to make the spells and the weapons that you use, they're trying to get a system where all of that is dealt with in the same way, right? So, I mean, if I was a wizard, I could probably type fireball here and then put all the different information that I need. I didn't research the spells, but that seems to be what they're trying to do. They're trying to make all of the things that a player character can do in a fight, and they're trying to treat them all as the same kind of thing, which I guess I'm okay with. You just got to get used to it. By the way, this is the workspace that you use to figure out what your bonus is for attacking. And then this is the space where you figure out what your total damage is, right? And then once you figure out these numbers, right, you can transfer those numbers down here if you want to. So this is unarmed melee, but I could also put bastard sword and sling. This is the part I had a hard time understanding, defense, right? In 4th edition, you got 4 different types of defenses, right? So you always have to know what kind of a defense this attack is going to be going up against. So my melee attacks, of course, are going to go up against their armor class. But if I was doing a fireball spell, right, I'd have some number here versus, and then it would be the reflex saving throw. And then that's just where you figure out all these numbers so you can get through attacks quickly, right? Okay, action points. You get to spend 1 anytime you want to in a fight. You get to spend, I believe, 1 per encounter, and it gives you an extra action that turn. Feats, it's similar, but what I noticed is that there's a ton of them. All the different feats you can do, there's a lot of them. Things are really different in this edition. They've got so many skills, and so many feats, and so many powers. It will take you a long time to get through it all. Okay, so let's talk about equipment. Or once you figure out your equipment, then you can come here and you can figure out your armor class from it, right? So 10 plus my level, and then the armor class and my modifier, right? For some reason, because I'm not using light armor, I don't get my dex modifier here anymore. So this is a big change from all the previous versions of D&D. Because I'm not using a shield, I don't get any benefits there too. So I've got a total armor class of 17. So this is my speed up here, right? Once you know your race, you'll figure out what your base rate is for your race, and then you'll add some kind of a speed factor. You'll find that in the armor data, and then 6 minus 1 is this 5. So that's how many squares I get to move on the table every 6 seconds in a fight, right? So that's not very different. And we'll go here to the back, right? You probably won't start out with many magic items. Draw, baby, draw. They got a lot of space here for just your character story, right? This took a little bit of getting used to. On page 29, they've got a list of all the different sorts of powers you have access to every day, right? They've got here at will, encounter, daily, and utility powers. Utility doesn't affect new guys, so don't worry about that. But at will, you get to use as often as you wish. Encounter is once per encounter. Daily is once per day. You're going to have to just read through your race and class descriptions really well so that you know what you can do. Anyway, this is what I chose. So in a fight, I can do this cleave and reaping strike. I think I didn't understand reaping strike very well. It just sounds like a normal attack, right? And then the cleave, there's a chance of me hitting a second guy. Okay. A lot of spells don't exist in 4th edition anymore. They aren't spells anymore. They're called rituals. Teleport, that's frustrating. I really like teleport, but they turned this thing into a ritual. From now on, if you learn this kind of spell, you can't actually cast it. You have to have a book that you read out of from now on. So anyway, that's how you fill out a character sheet. Good luck to you. So I was going to compare a couple of monsters now. I'm going to start with the zombie. So anyway, what you're going to notice is that the 4th edition zombie is a very different thing, right? Over here you've got hit dice of 2, which means the average hit points of this thing is going to be 9. But here this thing's at 40 hit points, right? So the zombie is a much tougher thing. And I mean, if you can see down here in the XP value, it's got 125 experience points. I mean, that's more than an ogre, I think, is in 2nd edition. So anyway, it's a much stronger thing. The armor class, right? Armor class of 13, the armor class is also better. So we've talked about this in previous editions, right? The armor class across the board, the base number that everybody gets if they're just standing there without any armor on is 10, right? For 2nd edition, the better the armor class, the number goes down. But here in 3rd edition and also in 4th edition, the better the armor class, this number goes up, right? So that means that this was, the armor class was wimpier here than it was here, because this is only 1 away from 10, but this is 2 away from 10, right? But here you've got an armor class of 13, which is, it's even better than this one here. That would be in 2nd edition compared to like a 7 armor class, right? So, aside from that, things are about the same. It's just everything's been described in a different set of terms. Zombie grab, that's new. Level 2 monster, level 3 monster. So there's just going to be lots of little differences here. So more hit points, better armor class, speed is slower. Here the speed was higher, right? And then here it's half of human. Here it's a little bit slower than humans. Here it's a little bit faster than humans. I'll just let you look at it. You can kind of figure it out on your own. So let's talk about the Odiug. You know, the Remoraz is not in 4th edition. I wish I could have continued to do that from one edition to the next, but the Remoraz is not there, so I'm going to have to choose a different monster. So this is the stats for the Odiug in 2nd and 4th editions, right? So, like I said, monsters tend to be very different in 4th edition. Not only do they just switch the numbers to fit the new system, but sometimes the monsters themselves actually change, right? So here you've got a hit dice of 6 to 8. So what's 7 times 4.5? So that'd be 28 plus something, right? So about 30 versus 82 here, right? So it seems that the Odiug got a lot bigger. What I also noticed is that the XP value here is 650 to 1400, but here it's only 300. So the XP system in 4th edition is very different than it is in 2nd edition. It seems like both monsters more or less do the same thing, but here they describe everything, and they got everything standardized and formalized, and it kind of looks like it popped out of a cookie cutter. Here, that it was the DM's responsibility to kind of figure out how to deal with it well. Here it seems that your thinking has been taken care of for you, which I don't know if I like that as much. Anyway, armor class of 3, armor class of 23. So this would be in 2nd edition parlance, right? This would be -3, right? This guy's got a -3 armor class, and this guy's got a 3 armor class. So all across the board, this thing seems to be tougher, except he's not worth as much experience points. So you're going to have to get into the system to understand that a little bit better. Okay, so let's talk about Fireball. Things actually changed a lot. And there's a whole bunch of new terminology here that you just, when you're first looking at it, you're not going to understand it. So I'll just go through it. It's just going to take time. Fireball, that's the same. Wizard attack 5. It means it's a 5th level wizard spell, which means that when you get to 5th level, you can start using this spell, which is about the same as it was back in 2nd edition. You can't use 3rd level spells until you've attained 5th level, right? Daily. This means that you can only do this thing once a day. I mean, you learn this thing and you can still only do it once a day. It's called a daily power, right? You can do this a bunch of times a day, but over here, 4th edition, you're only allowed to do it once a day, so it's a much more limited thing. Back here in 2nd edition, you got your level in 6-sided dice, right? So up to 10d6. Here you're only going to get 3d6, plus your intelligence modifier. So they really wimped it up, and honestly speaking, you can only use it once a day, and it's not very strong. That's a big deal. Okay? Standard action, I'm not going to get into the times for this particular edition. I just don't think I want to. We're going to keep this really simple this time. Area burst 3, that I believe that means it affects from a center, goes out 3 squares in every direction. And each square is 5 feet, so that means a 30-foot diameter burst, right? So that's not too far away from this. And you can do it, this is the range, within 20 squares. So you can do it up to 100 feet away from you. And then the saving throw, right, it's you're doing an intelligence attack versus their reflex saving throw. So if you look back at the character sheet, I explained that a little bit. Miss, half damage, that's the same thing. So spells changed a lot, and it looks like they got not as strong as they used to be, which is too bad. A 10d6 fireball is a really fun thing to throw. 3d6 against a zombie that's got 40 hit points, I don't think that's going to be so much. So anyway, that's it. That's enough for the fireball. The other thing I was going to talk to you about was the teleport spell, right? But the teleport's been changed. It's not a full-fledged spell anymore. From now, it's a ritual. So I saw a couple of them, but the one that seems to fit is this one called a linked portal. And it's not a teleport spell, but it's like the closest thing to it I could find in the book. You have to read it out of a book, and it takes 10 minutes to cast. It's not the 5 segments that it was back in 2nd edition. You can't cast one of these in the middle of a combat to run away, right? So that one really changed, and I love teleport, so that's really frustrating to me. That's it. That's all I'm going to be saying about 4th edition. I was pretty hard on it. If you love 4th edition, I'd love to hear your comments in the below this video. I'm not going to debate with you. You know, if you love this edition, you're welcome to loving it, and I'm happy that you love it. And after all the amount of effort these guys put into making it, I'm glad that somebody loves it. You know, if this was the only edition of D&D available to me, I could enjoy it and I'd be okay with it. But wow, there's so many big changes that would be hard to deal with. So that's it. That's all I'm going to be saying about 4th edition today. Next week I'll be talking about 5th edition, and then I'm done covering all the new modern editions, and I'll kind of be happy about that too. John's D&D vlog. I sure am happy you guys are listening. I've got 225 subscribers right now. I'm still very small, but I'm happy about each and every one of you guys that listens every week. Thank you very much. Have a good day.